The boardroom went silent when she said it. "I want a baby," the female CEO whispered, eyes steady, voice barely holding together. "Will you help me?" Ethan Brooks, standing near the glass wall with a coffee he hadn't touched, felt the world tilt. He wasn't expecting that question, especially not from Claire Whitmore, the woman whose name was etched on every skyscraper downtown, whose decisions moved markets and headlines. He was just the IT consultant. A single dad who showed up early, left on time, and never talked about his personal life. I'm sorry," Ethan said, certain he'd misheard. Claire exhaled, the confidence that ruled boardrooms slipping into something painfully human. "I'm not asking lightly. And I'm not asking randomly." Ethan's life had already been reduced to careful balance. Mornings were lunches packed and hair braided for his 8-year-old daughter, Lily. Evenings were homework at the kitchen table, bedtime stories read twice because Lily liked the funny voices, and quiet moments afterward where he wondered if he was doing enough. His wife had passed away 3 years earlier. Cancer didn't care about love or promises. Since then, Ethan had learned how to survive, not dream. Claire Whitmore, on the other hand, seemed to live in a different universe. She was 42. Brilliant. Self-made. Relentless. But what the magazines never captured was the ache she carried quietly, year after year. Promotions came. Awards followed. But every night, she returned to a penthouse that echoed. Doctors had been clear, time was not on her side. "I don't want a relationship," she said gently, as if reading his thoughts. "I don't want romance or complications. I want honesty. Respect. And kindness." Ethan stared at the city below. "Why me?" Claire's eyes softened. "Because I've watched you. You never miss a school pickup. You turn down overtime without apology. You talk to people like they matter. And when my assistant lost her husband, you stayed late to fix her computer so she could leave early." She paused. "I want my child to have half of that." Ethan went home that night and said nothing. He made spaghetti. Helped Lily with a spelling test. Tucked her in. "Daddy," Lily asked sleepily, "do you think families can grow in different ways?" Ethan's chest tightened. "Yes, sweetheart. I do." He sat in the dark long after she fell asleep. Helping Claire would mean legal contracts. IVF. Boundaries drawn in ink. It would mean choosing compassion over comfort. It would mean explaining things to Lily, to the world, to himself. But it would also mean helping someone who had everything, except the one thing she wanted most. Weeks passed. Lawyers talked. Doctors explained. Claire never pressured him. She simply waited. One evening, Ethan finally spoke. "I'll help," he said. "But not if this becomes a transaction. I want transparency. And if this child ever asks who I am, I won't lie." Claire nodded, tears slipping free. "I wouldn't want you to." The process was clinical. Respectful. Carefully planned. Yet something unexpected happened along the way. Claire began visiting Ethan's modest home for dinner, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Lily showed her drawings. Asked blunt questions. "Are you rich? Why don't you have kids? Do you like dogs?" Claire laughed more in those evenings than she had in years. Ethan saw her differently too, not as a CEO, but as a woman who flinched at thunder and loved old movies and once confessed, quietly, "I'm scared I'll fail at being a mother." "You won't," Ethan said without thinking. "You already care too much." The call came early one morning. Claire was pregnant. She stood in Ethan's kitchen shaking, hands covering her mouth. "It worked," she whispered. Ethan's legs gave out and he sat down hard. The words escaped him before he could stop them. "I'm going to be a father." The realization hit them both at once. Not in the traditional sense. Not by accident or romance. But by choice. By kindness. By trust. The months that followed were full of quiet miracles. Lily talked to Claire's belly every visit. "I'll teach you everything," she promised the growing life inside. Especially how to annoy Dad. Claire attended school plays. Learned how to cook pancakes that weren't burned. She asked Ethan questions she'd never asked anyone. "How do you know you're doing it right? What if I mess them up?" Ethan always answered honestly. "You won't know. You will mess up. And they'll love you anyway." The night the baby arrived, Ethan waited outside the delivery room, hands shaking like they had the day Lily was born. When the nurse finally opened the door, Claire looked exhausted and radiant. "It's a boy," she said. "Anne. I want you to meet him." Ethan stepped forward, heart pounding. The tiny bundle blinked up at him, impossibly small, impossibly real. Claire swallowed. "Thank you," she whispered. "For seeing me. For helping me become who I always wanted to be." Ethan nodded, tears blurring everything. "Thank you for reminding me that families aren't accidents. They're choices." Years later, people would try to label them. Co-parents. Unconventional. Strange. But labels didn't matter. What mattered was Lily holding her little brother's hand at the park. What mattered was Claire cheering at soccer games. What mattered was Ethan realizing that his act of compassion didn't just change one life, it expanded his own. Sometimes, the bravest love stories aren't about falling for someone. They're about standing up for someone. And choosing, together, to create something beautiful.